She was invisible to most, just another cleaner in a world that rarely looked her way. Every day, she scrubbed floors that others walked past, hearing whispers and laughter that cut deeper than any insult. But one stormy night, when everything started to fall apart inside the gleaming towers she cleaned, the woman everyone ignored became the only person who could save the man at the top. No one expected the truth she was about to reveal, or how it would expose more than just a broken company. Because sometimes, the people we overlook hold the power to change everything.
Every morning before sunrise, Maria arrived at the towering glass building downtown, her mop and cleaning cart her silent companions. She'd worked there for years, unseen but always present, making every surface spotless before the city's executives arrived. Most days she was greeted not with smiles but with silence, or worse, smirks that reminded her she didn't belong in their world of designer suits and polished shoes. Yet Maria carried her pride quietly. Her work was her dignity. She dreamed of earning enough to move her mother into a safer neighborhood, just a few more paychecks away. But lately, something felt off. A tension in the air. Hushed conversations at night. Maria didn't know it yet, but she was standing at the edge of a storm that would soon upend everything she knew.
The days that followed felt different, sharper, colder. Maria could feel eyes on her that hadn't cared before. One morning, as she arrived early to tidy the executive floor, she overheard laughter from the break room. Her name slipped through the air, tangled with jokes that made her chest tighten. She'd learned to ignore that kind of noise, but this time it felt heavier, as if something darker was growing behind those smiles. By the next week, things began to unravel. A missing envelope from the CEO's office triggered a quiet investigation, and somehow, whispers began circling back to her. She was called into a small, glass-walled office where the HR manager's polite tone couldn't hide the suspicion in his eyes. "It's just routine," he said, but the glances from her coworkers told a different story. They avoided her gaze, stepping aside as if her presence carried guilt. In those moments, Maria realized she was no longer invisible. She was a target. Rumors spread fast, too fast. The same executives who used to pretend she didn't exist suddenly had opinions about her character. Someone claimed they saw her leaving an office she never entered. Another said they always had a feeling. It was the same old story, judged not by her actions, but by what she looked like, by where she came from, by the color of her skin. And with each passing day, the truth seemed further out of reach. Still, Maria refused to break. She doubled down, coming in earlier, leaving later, doing her job with quiet precision. But the colder the hallway looks became, the louder her doubts grew. Was this how it would end? All her years of hard work erased by one cruel assumption? Then came the night of the storm. The city was wrapped in lightning and rain when the building's power flickered and alarms began to wail. Maria rushed to help secure the lobby, but a crowd formed near the CEO's office. Panic, confusion, danger. The CEO was trapped inside. Something had gone wrong with the security system. No one knew how to reach him. Maria looked around. The same people who'd whispered about her now frozen in fear. She had cleaned that room 100 times. She knew every vent, every door, every circuit panel. Her heart pounded as she stepped forward, rain dripping from her hair, determination in her eyes. For the first time, everyone noticed her, but for a reason none of them expected. And in that split second, standing before chaos and injustice, Maria realized she held more power than they'd ever given her credit for. What she did next would silence every whisper that had ever followed her name. The alarms screamed through the storm as rain beat against the glass walls of the building. Flashing red lights painted everything in chaos. Trapped behind the reinforced office door, the CEO pounded for help, while water from the burst pipes flooded the corridor. Security systems had locked down, and no one dared to go near the control panel. It sparked dangerously with every flicker of power. Everyone shouted directions, but no one acted.
Every face that had once looked down on Maria now turned to her, desperate and silent. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. This was her chance to do something no one else could. She pushed through the crowd, kneeling before the live panel she had cleaned countless times. Sparks leapt at her gloves as she pried open the metal casing, the wet floor reflecting a network of flickering lights. They told her to stop, that it was too dangerous. But for Maria, the danger had always been there, quiet, unseen, relentless. Every insult, every smirk, every baseless accusation had built to this one defiant act. Heart pounding, she traced the wires, relying on memory. Her fingertips burned as she twisted the final connection, and suddenly the locks clicked open. The heavy door slid aside. Through the smoke and dim light, the CEO stumbled out, coughing, alive. The crowd gasped, then fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. Maria stood there drenched, shaking, a mix of exhaustion and relief flooding her chest. The same people who once doubted her now stared as if seeing her for the first time. But behind their awe, she saw something else, a dawning shame, a recognition too long denied. As the CEO met her eyes, words failed him. Maria simply nodded, then turned away, the flickering alarms still echoing behind her. The woman they once mocked had just saved the man they worshipped. And in that moment, everyone realized power doesn't always wear a suit. The next morning, the building stood quiet. The chaos of the night before had left its mark. Broken glass, soaked carpets, and a silence that felt heavy with realization. Maria returned to work as she always did, her uniform still damp from the storm, her movement steady. But this time, when she walked through the lobby, no one looked through her. Every glance carried something new: respect, gratitude, maybe even guilt. The same hands that once pointed fingers now reached out to thank her. The CEO called her into his office later that day. His voice trembled with something she had never heard before: humility. He told her the board wanted to honor her publicly, to recognize her bravery. But Maria only smiled softly. She didn't need applause. What she wanted was change, real change. She asked him for something simple: fairness, for every worker who had ever been overlooked, underestimated, or judged by their skin before their character. In the weeks that followed, new policies were drafted, diversity training began, and the whispers that once filled quiet rooms slowly disappeared. Yet, Maria knew one story could not rewrite the world, but it could start a ripple. And maybe, just maybe, that ripple could grow. As she left the building one evening, the city lights reflecting on the wet pavement, Maria paused and looked back. The place that had once made her feel invisible now stood as a reminder of what courage could expose. Because this wasn't just her story. It was a reflection of countless others forced to fight for their worth in a world that still chooses who gets seen. The question that lingers is simple. How many more will be ignored before we finally learn to see each other for who we truly are?